15 months ago, Barcelona were a punchline. They'd just been dismantled by Paris Saint-Germain in a Champions League quarter-final they were supposed to win. They'd been humiliated in a Spanish Super Cup final by a Real Madrid hat-trick. No trophies. No identity. No fear factor. Pundits weren't asking if Barcelona could win the Champions League, they were asking if Barcelona still belonged in the conversation at all. Now look at them. Back-to-back La Liga titles. A season where they didn't lose a single home league match, 19 out of 19. A front line that includes a teenager who's already outproducing most established stars, and two new signings who are among the fastest players in world football. And now, the biggest name in world midfield is reportedly choosing Barcelona over Real Madrid. So here's the question nobody's really answering properly. Is this just a good spell, or is Barcelona quietly building the scariest version of themselves in over a decade? Stick around, because by the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why teams across Europe should be nervous. To understand how far Barcelona have come, you have to remember how far they fell. Javi Hernandez's final season in charge was a mess. Barcelona lost 3 times to Real Madrid in one campaign. They were taken apart in the Super Cup final. And then came the night that summed everything up, a Champions League quarter-final against Paris Saint-Germain that Barcelona should have controlled after winning the first leg. Instead, they collapsed. Ousmane Dembélé, a former Barcelona player, tore them apart. Kylian Mbappé finished the job. It wasn't one bad night. It was the end result of a club that had lost its identity, no title, no cup, no European run, and worse than any single result, no clear sense of what Barcelona football was supposed to look like anymore. That's the version of Barcelona that Hansi Flick inherited. And even his start was rocky. A loss to Monaco in a pre-season friendly had people asking, quietly, whether this was going to be another false start. It wasn't. What Flick did in year 1 wasn't a gentle improvement. It was a demolition of the old Barcelona and a total rebuild in its place. League title. Cup title. Super Cup title. And the way Barcelona won those trophies mattered just as much as winning them. They didn't scrape past Real Madrid, they overwhelmed them. For meetings between the two clubs that season. For Barcelona wins. A statement win at the Bernabeu that nobody saw coming, built on a suffocating high defensive line that repeatedly caught Madrid's attack offside. A dominant win in the Super Cup final. A dramatic extra-time win in the Copa del Rey. A come-from-behind classic to seal the league. At home, Barcelona were untouchable, 19 wins from 19. Over the full league season, 28 wins, 4 draws, 6 defeats, over 100 goals scored. A goal difference deep into positive double digits. Numbers that don't belong to a rebuilding team, they belong to a team that has already arrived. The next season, Barcelona went further still, 94 points, another perfect home record, and on a Sunday in May, they did something the club had never done before in its history. They won the league title by beating Real Madrid at Camp Nou. Not at some neutral, symbolic moment. In the building. In front of their own fans. Against their biggest rival. This isn't a team hoping to be good again. This is a team that has already re-established itself as the best in Spain, 2 years running. But here's the uncomfortable part of the story, the part that keeps this Barcelona side hungry instead of satisfied. Europe still hasn't given them what they want. In Flick's first season, Barcelona finally broke through the wall that had stopped them for years, reaching a Champions League semi-final for the first time in half a decade. And then they were eliminated in the cruelest way possible, in extra time, after having the tie almost won. The following season, an early red card in the first leg against Atletico Madrid changed everything, and a brilliant individual goal was enough to send Barcelona out again. 2 years. 2 painful European exits. Total domestic control, and continental heartbreak. That's not a footnote, that's the entire reason this next chapter matters so much. Because everything Barcelona have built domestically now has one target left standing in front of it. Here's what's changed heading into this season. This isn't Flick trying to fix a broken team anymore. This is his 3rd year in charge, the point where every great manager's ideas stop being new and start being automatic. The core of this squad isn't a group of teenagers being thrown in because there's no other option. It's a group of players who have already won trophies together, already suffered together in Europe, and in some cases, already become full internationals and world champions. That changes everything about how a team plays under pressure. There's no learning curve left to climb, just refinement. And on top of that experienced core, Barcelona have added something this squad has never really had, serious top-end speed. One new signing has been clocked above 37 km an hour in full sprint. The other new arrival has hit over 36. Barcelona's own teenage superstar has reached 35.5. Even the winger never really considered a pure sprinter sits comfortably above 32. Think about what that actually does to a defense. A centre-back can't step forward with confidence when there's a burst of pace waiting in behind him. A fullback can't tuck inside when someone's ready to sprint into the space he's just vacated. A defensive line can't hold its shape when 3 or 4 separate outlets can turn a single loose ball into a foot race they're going to lose. Speed alone doesn't win football matches. Barcelona already know that, and this is where the numbers get genuinely frightening. Last season alone, the club's young superstar produced 24 goals and 18 assists. Their striker added 21 goals. Their attacking midfielder contributed 13 goals and 17 assists. Their Brazilian winger chipped in 21 goals and 8 assists. Add that up, 4 players, over 120 combined goal contributions in a single season. And now Barcelona are layering elite pace on top of a group that was already this productive. That's not addition, that's compounding. And behind this first team, there's another generation quietly forcing its way in. A 16-year-old midfielder who was already Barcelona's third highest league scorer last season, and already named the best player at a European Youth Championship, someone who doesn't just wait for pressure to pass, but drives straight through it. An 18-year-old striker whose senior debut produced 2 goals in 2 completely different ways, one converted with ice-cold composure from the penalty spot, one snapped up on instinct from a rebound. A number 9 already being talked about back home as a future face of his country's football. A young centre-back with the calm-on-the-ball profile Barcelona have always demanded, comfortable breaking lines with a pass instead of panicking under pressure. An attacking fullback with the engine to cover a full flank and the football brain to invert into midfield when the situation calls for it. And a pair of academy cousins, one a left-footed attacker who thrives in tight spaces and unlocks stubborn defenses, the other a complete midfielder who can control tempo and still arrive late into the box. None of these players do the same job. That's what makes this pipeline dangerous. Barcelona aren't producing 5 versions of the same player, they're producing 5 different answers to 5 different problems. And then there's the move that ties this entire story together. Barcelona are reportedly closing in on the player widely regarded as the best holding midfielder on the planet, a Ballon d'Or winner, a Euro player of the tournament, a World Cup winner. To understand why this specific signing matters so much, go back to the numbers from Barcelona's last Champions League campaign: over 30 goals scored, 20 goals conceded. Read that stat line carefully. That's not a defensive team. That's not even a balanced team. That's a team that wins matches by outscoring the chaos it creates, brilliant going forward, vulnerable in transition, bleeding goals the moment their high line gets broken. A world-class holding midfielder doesn't fix that by chasing back after counterattacks. He fixes it before the race even starts, blocking the central lane, forcing play wide, giving the defense time to reset. That single addition doesn't just patch a weakness. It gives every attacking player in front of him more license to take risks, because there's finally real cover behind them. Combine that with a midfield that already includes a generational young playmaker, a physical ball winner, and a versatile attacking midfielder who's already delivered on the biggest stages, and you're not looking at a midfield that needs fixing. You're looking at one that just needed its final piece. Here's the thing that should genuinely worry the rest of Europe: almost none of this group is close to their peak yet. The most influential attacker in the squad is still a teenager. The academy centre-back generation is barely out of youth football. The new speed signings are entering their prime, not leaving it. And the manager pulling all of it together is only entering year 3. Historically, for the best coaches in the sport, that's usually the year everything clicks completely into place. Barcelona spent years being defined by what they'd lost: the trophies, the aura, the fear factor. This current group grew up watching that decline happen in real time. And now they're the ones being asked to end it. 2 league titles down. 1 target left. And for the first time in a long time, Barcelona actually look built for it. If you think this is the year Barcelona finally get over the European hurdle, or if you think there's still a hole in this squad nobody's talking about, drop it in the comments. And if you want the next breakdown the moment the midfield decision is confirmed, make sure you're subscribed, because this story is about to move fast.